Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. I hope you're all recovering well after yesterday's colossal abandoned disappointment. Please treat yourself this weekend, whether it's my video here today as your reward for the day or maybe a burger. Or if you're vegan, maybe get some seitan in your system. I don't know. Whatever's good for you, just treat yourself. It's been tough, and it's about to get a little bit more difficult, so buckle in if you're sticking around, because today we dive into what has been a hot topic in the community lately, Bethesda Remasters. Of course, fans are looking for that Fallout or Elder Scrolls Remaster, amongst many other IP that Bethesda has their hands on that could be touched up, and they are doing such a thing, but not with the game you expected. Now, does this smush the idea that a Fallout remaster or an Elder Scrolls remaster could come? No, but I think this should temper expectations for what to expect at QuakeCon, where a lot of people are getting a bit amped up, and I wanted to at least do my part here to, bring things down, bring expectations in check, and we'll talk about this a little bit. So, with that, before we get into the news, if you're new here, got a favor to ask. You mind subscribing? Pretty cool offer we got here. You get me. Pretty cool content. All right, cool. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, let's do this. Starting off with the headline from IGN, which reads, Quake leak suggests a revitalized edition of classic FPS to be announced at QuakeCon. First spotted by Xbox Era, the schedule features a panel called Let's Talk Quake, set to go live at 7:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Friday, August 20th. When originally uploaded, the description of this panel stated Quake is back. In this special stream, John Linneman from Digital Foundry talks to Jerk Gustafson of MachineGames about the title's iconic legacy and what it means to both of them. The pair will also discuss the additional content MachineGames has contributed to this revitalized edition. Whoa! Okay, so there's immediately a lot to unpack there, really on the company side of things, on who's working on this, because in a previous video talking about Fallout Remaster rumors on how we've heard there's a possibility that Bethesda's opening a new studio focusing on remakes and remasters, which would make sense because, we talked about the remake and remaster trend in this industry and everyone's capitalizing seemingly except Bethesda. And when you look at something like what GTA is going to do soon with the trilogy remastering GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, and it's like, hey, Bethesda, you got a whole catalog of games you could tap into. So I trust they eventually will, and it looks like they're starting that off with what I feel might be an unlikely one, but it's also maybe because I'm a bit younger. I'm 26, so I didn't have a lot of time with Quake, where this is more definitive to other gamers, so I mean no disrespect by it. Yes, I would prefer a Fallout remaster. I'm sure a lot of my audience would. But what's more surprising to me here is that the reports are saying it's MachineGames. They're in a really weird position as a Bethesda company. There was the expectation they were going to do Wolfenstein 3. Pete Hines quite literally, openly, publicly said as much. They are going to do a Wolfenstein 3. That was assumed to be their next game. Then Indiana Jones randomly gets announced, and of course that seems further off. But based off the timetable of development, Youngblood was co-developed between Arcane and MachineGames. So you had Wolfenstein 2 in 2017, Youngblood in 2019. It feels like we should have gotten or heard about at least Wolfenstein 3 to start up that marketing. And you're wondering, did Indiana Jones substitute that? And now you're hearing that MachineGames also worked on a revitalized version of Quake. They're very busy, and they're a very talented team, but wow, they are really busy. And when we were looking across all the Bethesda studios, this would not have been one I picked for a remaster. But if you dig deeper, which we will be doing this video, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, it starts to make a lot of sense. But at face value, I was very surprised by this, right? The idea that if Bethesda does remakes and remasters, are they going to keep things internally, or are they going to do sort of a Blue Point situation with PlayStation where you're seeing them develop this second-party relationship of they're going to work at least very closely together on consistent PlayStation-exclusive remakes until I feel one day PlayStation will buy Blue Point. We thought it was coming at some point, but then the thing leaked with the photo, and then they kind of rolled it back by Blue Point changing their Twitter bio that they were independent, saying something without saying something. So we'll see where all of that goes. But back to the original topic, a Quake remaster. Very interesting starting point for Bethesda, and yeah, we'll get into some frustration with that. But they immediately scrubbed it off the website, but the Wayback Portal saved it, so you can sort of see the schedule here where everything was, and yeah, it's still there. So this was something Bethesda was trying to hide. Now, why did this all end up making sense? I want to spotlight that first before some of my own personal gripes. When you look back, MachineGames actually worked on Quake a little bit. They said, happy 20th to Quake at id Software. As a gift to the fans, we created a new episode of the game. So they actually added content to the original. Then, a couple years ago, in a Q&A on Reddit, they were asked, would you guys like to make a new Quake single-player game? Please do it. Quake 5, to which Jerk Gustafson, the same one who is going to be at this panel, says, Quake is the reason I got into gaming. Discovering worldcraft and level design, making maps for Quake was one of the best experiences of my life. I even still do it today. Developing a Quake game, get this, a reimagination of Quake 1 is and will always be on my bucket list. But working with Wolfenstein and getting to work closely with my heroes over at id Software is pretty awesome too. So, I mean, shout out to that, right? That's amazing. Just being able to say, think of a license you all care about. For me, like one I don't talk about on the channel a lot, Mega Man, TMNT. If I had the opportunity to work on something like that, yeah, there's a true honor to that. But you're not going to complain if I'm working on, I don't know, like Dragon Ball at the same time, which, of course, as you can tell by the statues in the background, I love that too. But to my point is, you know, he's eating good, but now he's about to eat his best meal, working on a reimagination, if you will, of something that he clearly feels very passionate about. So that is awesome. That's a mega W. So congrats to MachineGames on that. I'm very curious to see what changes they're making, what they add, how they're revitalizing it for people like myself who have never really checked this game out. But there's no denying how iconic it is, and I think it's a solid selection. But I would be remiss to not say, what the hell? What the hell is going on? You know, this is something that I'm going to sound admittedly a smidge whiny. I fully acknowledge and admit that, but I mean it with no disrespect. When I say we saw Quake a couple of years ago kind of have a resurgence through id. id was handling it with Quake Champions, where they were adding all manner of heroes, one of them being BJ Blazkowicz. So we've always had MachineGames and id just going back and forth. They do excellent work together. And I thought that was sort of their testing grounds to see, like, hey, are people into Quake? And, you know, there really wasn't that excitement for it. I went and played it. I was originally planning to make a video on it, but I wasn't really crazy about the game. It didn't wow me, so I really just played it for podcast impressions, if anything. It wasn't bad. There was a lot of in-depth mechanics to it that I think PC FPS vets would be familiar with. But for me, it was just like, all right, this is solid. Now, in a day and age where arena shooters are really kind of having a resurgence, we're hearing a lot about Splitgate, which has been talked about for a number of years, but now it's really popping off. And then you look at something like Halo, which is, of course, an arena shooter. I mean, there is a lot there where now might be a good time to strike with something revolving around Quake. With that said, I can't help but look at Fallout and Elder Scrolls, and without sounding too redundant and too repetitive here on the channel, I want to always offer you all something a little bit more original and refined and developed. I look at it from a profitability standpoint and wonder to myself, why? Clearly there must be something beyond that. And I'm wondering if maybe for something like Fallout, I wonder if it goes down to music licenses sometimes. That was my latest thought. I was like, maybe they've held off on this because they have to renew a music license, but they're still able to sell it. So if that were the case, then wouldn't they have delisted it? But it's the only thing I could go to where I'm like, you know what? This does sound like Fallout in particular, by re-verifying these licenses, could be a pain in the ass to remaster just on a legality standpoint. Something that a lot of people don't consider when they slap together the radio. But I feel like they've also sort of worked through that a bit, because we've seen Fallout songs carry over between 3 all the way up to 76. And then even in the case of 76, when Wastelanders dropped, they added new music to the radio. So I feel like they're able to continue these music licenses through the Fallout games. And I'm not quite sure how, but this was one place my head went to, because I think all of us can agree at the end of the day, it seems obvious. And it's clearly not what we expected when it came to Bethesda Remasters. Remember, we're talking Bethesda. I can't even, as someone who's covered them for a while, off the top of my head, think of a remaster they've done. They've done definitive editions, right? Like we've seen Dishonored get its own definitive editions where the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions have been brought to the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they've been up-res and all that good stuff. Higher frame rate. We've seen that, but I'm talking like traditional, like what we're seeing here with revitalized Quake, like a remaster, taking the old game and refining it a bit, making it better. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing on a mechanical level, but that's something that I've wondered, why wouldn't they go to Elder Scrolls or Fallout, because of how obvious it seems, at least from a financial standpoint. And so that brings us to a rumor, and literally just a rumor, that has only been hearsay across a couple of podcasts, which I wouldn't say were like strongly legitimized in the terms of source and knowledge in hearing things within the industry, as far as I'm concerned, which has really been led into different forms, is the idea that maybe inXile is working on a Fallout game, which I think anyone could make up because it just makes so much sense, right? It's one of those rumors where you could almost say, yeah, throw the dart on the board, I've heard that inXile is working on a Fallout game. It's like, oh, really? The Brian Fargo, one of the fathers of Fallout, who just released Wasteland, which gave birth to Fallout. You know, he just released Wasteland 3 with that team, and you're telling me they may be working on a Fallout game? That almost makes a lot of sense. So there's also that up in the air, where maybe they want to do something with the traditional, well, now considered traditional, first-person, third-person Fallout games, when knowing inXile, I feel like they'd likely hit us with something more isometric. But it's just kind of gotten my gears turning, because this isn't disappointing. I'm keeping an open mind. I'd be cool with more Quake and checking this out and giving it a chance. But I can't help but look at it as a fan who wants other games remastered. What does this mean for that? And of course, different studios, different expectations, where I talked about Todd Howard and how he said, like, yeah, we don't really want to do remasters. And of course, the possibility of Xbox overriding that. But is this just a call by MachineGames saying, we're cool to do this? And so since they're cool to do it, but Bethesda Game Studios isn't, we'll see just remasters in different areas on different IP, not revolving around Fallout. I think a port at least is due. I do think accessibility to these games on the PlayStation side of things is really important, because it's really not. You want to play it on PS Now, I guess go for it. But beyond that, it's really not optimal. And so I think they should at least look into that. We'll see in due time. But I just wanted to go ahead and toss some thoughts out there, because y'all know I'm passionate about this subject. I've talked about it a lot of times. If I put a number on it, it'd probably be a little embarrassing. But I wanted to keep everyone updated, because I thought it was important to, at the front half of this video, keep expectations in check and sort of set up a cool story here where it's like, you know, Jerk Gustafson and his team are able to work on something that was mega inspirational to them, but at the same time, share my thoughts at the ending part of the video on what exactly is going on with Bethesda and why there seems to be maybe some hesitation with Fallout. Or I shouldn't say hesitation, right? Because we don't know. They have to wait to announce things, but how there hasn't been movement either. We haven't heard things internally yet. So we'll see in due time. I believe they will eventually do it. We're just gonna have to continue to wait. So let me know what your thoughts are on this topic in the comments down below. Certainly looking forward to reading them. And other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.